Welcome to Audiobook World. Today's book summary. The Brain, The Story of You by David Eagleman is a fascinating exploration of the human brain and its complexities. The book delves into how our brain shapes our perception of reality, our thoughts, and our sense of identity. Eagleman uses a mix of scientific insights and engaging storytelling to explain how the brain processes the world around us, influences our behaviors, and constructs our personal narratives. He uncovers the mechanisms that allow us to experience emotions, make decisions, and form memories, while also examining how the brain adapts and changes over time. Throughout the book, Eagleman discusses the brain's plasticity, its ability to reorganize itself in response to experiences, and how it allows us to continuously evolve. He also explores the idea of consciousness, questioning what it means to be you, and how much of our experience is based on the stories our brains tell us. The book touches on the impact of neuroscience on fields like law and ethics, offering insights into how our understanding of the brain might shape future societal decisions. Ultimately, The Brain, The Story of You offers readers an accessible yet profound look into the organ that defines our existence, helping us better understand who we are and how we interact with the world. In Chapter 1 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled The Brain is Built for Change, David Eagleman introduces the concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to adapt and reorganize itself in response to new experiences. Eagleman explains that the brain is not a static organ but a dynamic one, constantly evolving throughout our lives. He emphasizes that this adaptability is crucial to how we learn, grow, and interact with the world. The brain's ability to change allows individuals to form new habits, learn new skills, and even recover from injuries that affect brain function. The chapter focuses on how the brain circuits are shaped by both external experiences and internal processes. Eagleman discusses how this reshaping happens on a biological level, highlighting the concept that the brain is not a fixed structure but a highly responsive system that can be influenced by both our environment and our actions. He also touches on how the brain's plasticity is central to the way we perceive and understand the world around us, and how our mental states, behaviors, and even identities are constantly shaped by our brain's ongoing transformation. Through this chapter, Eagleman sets the stage for the rest of the book, offering a foundation for understanding the brain's capacity for change and how this ability is crucial for survival and personal development. The discussion is rooted in both science and storytelling, providing readers with an accessible introduction to the brain's incredible flexibility and power. In Chapter 2 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled What is the Brain?, David Eagleman delves into the fundamental question of what the brain truly is. He begins by describing the brain as the most complex object in the known universe, highlighting its astonishing capacity to process information, control behavior, and shape our experience of the world. Eagleman emphasizes that while we often think of the brain as a simple organ that sits in our skull, it is actually a dynamic system with intricate networks of neurons communicating at lightning speed. Eagleman also explores the brain's structure and function, explaining that it contains around 86 billion neurons, each capable of making thousands of connections with other neurons. This vast network allows the brain to perform an array of complex functions, from regulating bodily functions to interpreting sensory information and generating thoughts. He paints a picture of the brain as a vast, interconnected web where every part influences the others in ways we are only beginning to understand. The chapter also touches on the brain's role in shaping perception and experience. Eagleman points out that the brain is not a passive receiver of sensory input but an active constructor of our reality. Our brain doesn't simply record what we see and hear, it interprets and molds that information, sometimes even creating illusions or filling in gaps to create a coherent narrative. This process is central to understanding consciousness, as the brain works constantly to produce the version of reality that we experience as our world. Through this chapter, Eagleman provides a foundation for understanding the brain as an active, adaptive, and remarkably complex system, encouraging readers to rethink their understanding of the brain and its role in shaping not just our thoughts, but our entire perception of existence. Please subscribe Audiobook World channel for new summary. In Chapter 3 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled How Do You Feel?, David Eagleman explores the brain's role in shaping our emotions and how these emotions influence our behavior and decision-making. He explains that emotions are not simply abstract feelings but are deeply tied to the brain's processes. The brain is constantly receiving signals from both the body and the external world, interpreting these signals, and generating emotional responses as a way of guiding action. Eagleman breaks down how the brain uses emotions to help us navigate complex social situations, make choices, and respond to challenges. He discusses how emotions are not isolated mental experiences but are the result of intricate networks within the brain, involving areas like the amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and insula. These regions work together to process emotional stimuli and determine how we feel in response to events, whether that's fear, joy, anger, or empathy. Emotions, according to Eagleman, are not merely reactions but are essential to our decision-making processes, often occurring faster than rational thought and shaping our actions in profound ways. He also touches on how emotions can sometimes override rational thought, leading to decisions that may seem illogical but are grounded in emotional instinct. For example, fear may trigger a fight-or-flight response that overrides more calculated thinking, while happiness can motivate behaviors that encourage social bonding. Eagleman highlights how understanding the brain's emotional processes can lead to greater awareness of our actions and reactions in daily life. The chapter also addresses the complexity of emotional regulation. Eagleman explains how our emotions are not always within our conscious control, and how the brain systems sometimes respond automatically to stimuli, making emotions feel involuntary. However, with practice and understanding, individuals can learn to better manage their emotional responses. This chapter highlights the deep interconnection between the brain, emotions, and behavior, providing insight into how emotions shape the way we experience the world and how we interact with others. In Chapter 4 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled Your Brain's Inner Movie, David Eagleman delves into how the brain creates our perception of reality, which he compares to an ongoing, inner movie. He explains that what we experience as reality is not a direct reflection of the outside world, but rather an interpretation constructed by the brain. Our sensory inputs, sight, sound, touch, are constantly processed by the brain, which synthesizes and organizes this information to create a cohesive and meaningful experience. Eagleman explores how the brain fills in gaps and makes predictions to create a continuous narrative of the world. For example, when we see an object, our brain doesn't merely process raw data from our eyes, it interprets the object in the context of past experiences, expectations, and prior knowledge. This process allows us to quickly make sense of the world, but it also means that our perception is shaped by the brain's filtering and predictive mechanisms. The result is that the movie we experience in our minds is not a true reflection of external reality but a subjective representation constructed by our brain. The chapter also explores the idea of sensory integration, highlighting how different senses work together to create a unified experience. Eagleman points out that our sense of reality is shaped not just by sight or sound alone, but by the complex interaction between all our senses, which are constantly being integrated and interpreted by the brain. This integration allows us to make sense of complex situations, such as recognizing a friend's face in a crowd or understanding speech in a noisy room. Eagleman also touches on how the brain's inner movie can be altered or disrupted by neurological conditions. He provides examples of individuals who experience distortions in their perception, such as those with visual or auditory hallucinations. These examples show how the brain's construction of reality can be affected by injury, disease, or malfunction, leading to altered experiences of the world. Ultimately, the chapter underscores the idea that our perception is not an objective reflection of the world, but a dynamic and constructed experience. The brain's constant efforts to create this inner movie are essential to how we interact with the world and make sense of our surroundings. Please subscribe Audiobook World channel for new summary. In Chapter 5 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled The Eye of the Storm, David Eagleman explores the concept of the self and how the brain constructs our sense of identity. He begins by discussing the complexity of the brain's inner workings and how it creates a unified sense of I, even though this self is made up of many different, interacting systems. Eagleman suggests that the self we experience is not a single, unchanging entity, but rather a product of various neural processes that are constantly interacting and evolving. One of the key points Eagleman makes in this chapter is that the brain's construction of the self is not as simple as we often think. Rather than being an internal observer of the world, the brain is an active participant in shaping our perceptions, actions, and experiences. Our sense of self is built on a combination of memories, emotions, sensory input, and unconscious processes, all of which are integrated by the brain to create a coherent narrative of who we are. Eagleman also delves into how the brain organizes information about the body and the mind to create this unified self. He discusses the role of the brain's sensory systems in maintaining our body image and how the brain integrates information from different sensory sources to help us maintain a continuous sense of self-awareness. For example, the brain combines tactile sensations, visual cues, and proprioception, awareness of the position of our body in space, to create a stable, consistent perception of our body as a whole. The chapter also explores the idea that the self is not as solid and unchanging as we may think. Eagleman uses examples from neuroscience and psychology to show that the brain's perception of the self can be fluid and changeable. He examines how brain damage, mental illness, or certain altered states of consciousness can disrupt our sense of identity, leading to experiences of self-doubt, altered perception, or even the feeling of being disconnected from one's own body. Through this exploration, Eagleman encourages readers to question the nature of their own identities and consider how much of what we experience as the self is shaped by the brain's internal processes. The chapter highlights the brain's role in creating the continuous, coherent experience of being you, even though this experience is, in many ways, a complex and constantly shifting construction. In Chapter 6 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled The Invisible You, David Eagleman examines the idea that much of what makes us who we are happens outside of our conscious awareness. He highlights the vast amount of brain activity that occurs beneath the surface, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and emotions without us even realizing it. According to Eagleman, the conscious self, the you that you experience, is just the tip of the iceberg, with a significant portion of mental processes happening in the subconscious. Eagleman explains that the brain is constantly processing information and making decisions long before we are aware of it. Many of our actions, from simple reflexes to complex decisions, are governed by unconscious neural processes. This includes everything from controlling motor functions to managing emotions and making decisions based on prior experiences or biases. In this sense, the invisible you is made up of these underlying processes, which are responsible for much of what happens in our daily lives. The chapter explores how this unconscious brain activity shapes our perceptions and choices, often without our conscious involvement. Eagleman discusses the brain's ability to create a sense of control, even when much of our behavior is influenced by factors beyond our awareness. He uses examples from psychology and neuroscience to illustrate how biases, habits, and instincts can steer our actions in ways that are not always aligned with our conscious intentions. He also touches on how the brain's subconscious processes can lead to feelings of disconnection or conflict within the self. For instance, the brain may create automatic responses or judgments based on past experiences, which may not always align with our conscious beliefs or values. This creates a divide between what we think we know and what the brain is actually doing behind the scenes. In this chapter, Eagleman emphasizes that while we often think of ourselves as rational, conscious beings, much of our self is governed by invisible processes that operate without our awareness. These hidden aspects of the brain are crucial to our functioning and can influence everything from our day-to-day behaviors to our larger sense of identity. By understanding the invisible you, we can better grasp how much of our experience is shaped by unconscious brain activity. Please subscribe Audiobook World channel for new summary. In Chapter 7 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled What Makes You You, David Eagleman explores the concept of personal identity and how our sense of self is not as fixed or stable as it may seem. He delves into the idea that our identity is shaped by a dynamic and ever-changing set of processes within the brain, influenced by both internal factors and external experiences. Eagleman challenges the traditional notion that there is a single, unchanging core self that defines who we are. The chapter focuses on how the brain constructs our sense of identity through the integration of memories, emotions, sensory inputs, and our ongoing interactions with the world. Eagleman emphasizes that the brain is constantly reinterpreting and reorganizing itself in response to new experiences, meaning that our identity is not static but evolves over time. This fluidity of the self, he argues, is a key aspect of how the brain allows us to adapt to changing circumstances and environments. Eagleman discusses how memories play a central role in the construction of identity. He explains that our sense of self is deeply rooted in the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, based on the memories of our past experiences. These memories, however, are not perfect recordings of the past. The brain constantly reconstructs and even alters memories, meaning that our understanding of who we are can be influenced by the way we remember and reinterpret our experiences. This makes identity a malleable, evolving process rather than a fixed point. The chapter also explores the role of social interactions in shaping our identity. Eagleman notes that our sense of self is often influenced by how others perceive and react to us. This social feedback loop can reinforce certain aspects of our identity while pushing others into the background. Furthermore, cultural, familial, and societal influences contribute to shaping our sense of who we are, as we internalize the norms and values of the environments we inhabit. In this chapter, Eagleman ultimately argues that there is no single, unchanging, you that exists at the core of your being. Instead, your identity is the result of countless neural processes and interactions with the world around you, constantly reshaped by experiences, memories, and social influences. Through this lens, the brain's construction of the self is seen as a dynamic and adaptable process that allows us to continually evolve and respond to new challenges and situations. In Chapter 8 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled The Mind is a Storyteller, David Eagleman delves into the brain's role as the ultimate narrator of our experiences. He explains that the brain is constantly weaving together fragments of information, sensory inputs, memories, and emotions, to create coherent stories that help us make sense of the world. These narratives are essential for giving meaning to our experiences and for maintaining a sense of continuity in our lives. Eagleman highlights that these stories are not always accurate reflections of reality. The brain often fills in gaps or reshapes events to fit a logical narrative, even when the truth is more complex or contradictory. This storytelling function is what allows humans to interpret their experiences and create a sense of purpose, but it also means that much of what we remember or believe about ourselves and the world is shaped by subjective interpretations rather than objective facts. The chapter explores how these internal narratives influence our decisions, behaviors, and self-perception. Eagleman explains that the brain's storytelling mechanism helps us construct our identity and understand our place in the world. However, this same mechanism can lead to biases and false memories, as the brain prioritizes coherence over accuracy. For example, we might unconsciously alter our memories to align with how we want to see ourselves or to make sense of confusing events. Eagleman also discusses how storytelling is central to human communication and social connection. Our ability to share stories with others is a fundamental part of culture and society, allowing us to pass on knowledge, build relationships, and create shared understanding. However, he cautions that our reliance on stories can also make us susceptible to manipulation, as we tend to believe compelling narratives even when they are not supported by evidence. In this chapter, Eagleman underscores the dual nature of the brain's storytelling ability. It is both a powerful tool for meaning-making and a source of distortion. By understanding this, we can become more aware of how our brains shape our experiences and make more conscious choices about the stories we tell ourselves and others. Through this exploration, Eagleman reveals the profound ways in which the brain's storytelling function defines who we are and how we navigate the complexities of life. Please subscribe Audiobook World channel for new summary. In Chapter 9 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled The Virtual You, David Eagleman explores the concept of the brain as a simulator, constantly running internal models to predict the future, interpret the present, and make sense of the past. He explains that much of what we experience as reality is actually a virtual simulation created by the brain. Rather than reacting to the world in real time, the brain uses its prior experiences, memories, and sensory inputs to construct a predictive model that guides our actions and perceptions. Eagleman illustrates how the brain's ability to simulate extends beyond immediate survival needs. It enables us to imagine different possibilities, plan for the future, and reflect on past events. This simulation capacity is what allows humans to innovate, solve problems, and navigate complex social and environmental challenges. For instance, when you anticipate a friend's reaction to a joke or rehearse a conversation in your mind, your brain is running a virtual simulation of that scenario. The chapter delves into the mechanisms that allow the brain to create these virtual models. Eagleman discusses the role of neural networks in combining sensory data with stored knowledge, creating a framework for interpreting new experiences and predicting outcomes. He emphasizes that this simulation process is not flawless. The brain sometimes overgeneralizes or fills in gaps inaccurately, leading to misperceptions or incorrect assumptions about the world. Eagleman also examines the implications of the brain's simulation abilities for self-perception and decision-making. He highlights how the brain's predictions shape our sense of reality and influence how we perceive ourselves and others. For example, the brain's expectations about how we should feel, act, or think can shape our actual experiences, reinforcing biases or creating self-fulfilling prophecies. Furthermore, the chapter touches on the impact of technology on our virtual selves. Eagleman reflects on how digital tools, like social media and virtual reality, extend and amplify our brain's natural simulation capabilities, allowing us to interact with and even inhabit virtual environments. While this can enhance creativity and connection, it also raises questions about how our brains adapt to these new forms of virtual interaction and what that means for our sense of identity and reality. Ultimately, the virtual you highlights the brain's remarkable ability to simulate, predict, and adapt to a constantly changing world. Eagleman shows how this capacity defines not only how we experience reality but also how we imagine and shape the future, making it a cornerstone of what it means to be human. In Chapter 10 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled Neuroscience and the Law, David Eagleman explores the intersection of neuroscience and the legal system, challenging traditional notions of free will, culpability, and punishment. He examines how advancements in our understanding of the brain are reshaping the way we think about responsibility and accountability in criminal behavior. Eagleman begins by questioning the idea of free will, explaining that much of our behavior is governed by unconscious brain processes that operate outside our conscious awareness. He argues that criminal actions often stem from abnormalities in the brain, such as tumors, brain injuries, or developmental disorders, which can impair judgment or impulse control. For instance, he discusses cases where individuals committed crimes due to brain tumors or other neurological conditions that altered their behavior. These examples highlight the difficulty of assigning moral blame to someone whose actions were heavily influenced by factors beyond their control. The chapter explores the implications of this understanding for the legal system. Eagleman suggests that traditional approaches to justice, which focus on punishment and retribution, may not be effective or fair in light of what we know about the brain. Instead, he advocates for a shift toward a more scientific approach that focuses on rehabilitation, prevention, and the assessment of future risk. By understanding the underlying neurological causes of criminal behavior, society can develop more effective interventions to reduce recidivism and address the root causes of crime. Eagleman also discusses the potential for neuroscience to transform how we evaluate individuals in the courtroom. Technologies like brain imaging and genetic analysis could help determine the extent to which a defendant's behavior was influenced by biological factors. However, he acknowledges the ethical challenges of using such tools, including the risk of privacy violations and the potential for misuse in predicting criminal behavior. The chapter concludes with a call for a more nuanced understanding of human behavior and accountability. Eagleman emphasizes that while individuals must still be held responsible for their actions, our legal system should account for the complexity of the brain and the many factors that influence behavior. By integrating neuroscience into the justice system, we can create a fairer, more compassionate approach to addressing crime. Through this chapter, Eagleman highlights the profound implications of neuroscience for society, showing how a deeper understanding of the brain can reshape not only the way we think about justice but also how we treat those who commit crimes. In Chapter 11 of The Brain, The Story of You, titled The Future of the Brain, David Eagleman explores how advances in neuroscience and technology are shaping the future of the human brain and, by extension, humanity itself. He delves into the possibilities of enhancing, repairing, and even reimagining the brain's capabilities, offering a glimpse into a future where our understanding of the brain could fundamentally transform our lives. Eagleman discusses the incredible progress being made in brain-computer interfaces, which allow direct communication between the brain and external devices. These technologies have the potential to restore lost functions, such as enabling paralyzed individuals to move prosthetic limbs using their thoughts, or even allowing the blind to see through devices that translate visual information into neural signals. He highlights how these innovations are not just repairing deficits but are also pushing the boundaries of human potential, opening up possibilities for augmenting memory, cognition, and sensory perception. The chapter also examines the ethical and philosophical questions raised by these advancements. If we can enhance the brain's capabilities or even upload consciousness to a digital medium, what does that mean for our sense of identity and humanity? Eagleman explores the implications of merging biology with technology, pondering how these changes could redefine what it means to be human. He raises questions about inequality, as access to such technologies may not be universal, potentially widening the gap between those who can afford enhancements and those who cannot. Eagleman also touches on the potential for creating entirely new senses, by feeding the brain data it has never experienced before, such as ultraviolet light or magnetic fields. Humans could expand their perception of the world in ways previously unimaginable. This adaptability of the brain, known as neuroplasticity, means that our biology is not a limitation but a platform for innovation. The chapter concludes with a reflection on the interconnectedness of humanity and technology. Eagleman suggests that as we continue to unlock the secrets of the brain, we have the opportunity to shape a future that leverages our understanding for the betterment of society. However, he warns that these advancements come with significant responsibility and the need for ethical oversight to ensure they are used wisely. In this final chapter, Eagleman leaves readers with a sense of wonder and curiosity about the future, highlighting the limitless potential of the brain and the exciting, albeit challenging, road ahead as we merge neuroscience with technology. Chapter 12 of The Brain, The Story of You serves as a concluding reflection on the journey through the complexities of the human brain and its role in shaping who we are. David Eagleman synthesizes the insights explored in the book, emphasizing the profound power of the brain to construct our reality, guide our decisions, and define our sense of self. He revisits the central themes: identity, perception, emotions, memory, and the relationship between the brain and society, tying them together to offer a holistic view of what it means to be human. Eagleman reflects on the adaptability and resilience of the brain, showcasing its capacity to grow, change, and evolve. This neuroplasticity allows humans not only to survive in diverse environments but also to thrive and innovate. He emphasizes that our brains are not static, they are shaped by our experiences, interactions, and the world around us. This adaptability is what has enabled humans to progress and create civilizations, technologies, and cultures. In this final chapter, Eagleman also looks to the future, considering how our growing understanding of the brain might impact society. From advancements in artificial intelligence to the ethical dilemmas posed by brain augmentation, he explores how neuroscience will influence not just individual lives but humanity as a whole. He invites readers to think about the responsibility that comes with this knowledge and the importance of using it to create a better, more equitable world. The chapter closes with a reminder of the mystery and wonder of the brain. Despite all the progress in neuroscience, there is still so much we do not understand. Eagleman encourages readers to remain curious and open to the ongoing exploration of the brain, as this journey is central to understanding ourselves and the world we live in. In this way, the book concludes on a hopeful and thought-provoking note, celebrating the brain as both a marvel of evolution and a frontier of human discovery. The conclusion of The Brain, The Story of You encapsulates the central message of the book, that the human brain is a marvel of complexity, adaptability, and creativity. David Eagleman invites readers to appreciate the profound role the brain plays in shaping every aspect of who we are, our perceptions, emotions, memories, decisions, and identities. He emphasizes that our sense of self is not a fixed entity but an ongoing construction, influenced by experiences, environment, and relationships. Eagleman reflects on the brain's extraordinary ability to adapt and evolve, both within a single lifetime and across generations. This adaptability, or neuroplasticity, underscores our capacity for change and growth, allowing us to overcome challenges, learn new skills, and continuously reshape our understanding of the world. He argues that this flexibility is what makes humans unique, enabling us to create art, develop technologies, and form complex societies. The book concludes with a forward-looking perspective, highlighting the exciting possibilities that neuroscience offers for the future. From advancements in brain-computer interfaces to new treatments for neurological disorders, Eagleman envisions a world where our deepening understanding of the brain can enhance human potential and address pressing societal challenges. However, he also stresses the ethical responsibilities that come with this knowledge, urging humanity to use these tools wisely and equitably. Ultimately, Eagleman leaves readers with a sense of wonder and humility. Despite all the advances in neuroscience, the brain remains one of the greatest mysteries of existence, a testament to the complexity of nature and the boundless potential of human inquiry. By exploring the story of the brain, Eagleman not only deepens our understanding of ourselves but also inspires us to embrace the possibilities that lie ahead in the ever-unfolding story of humanity. Please subscribe Audiobook World channel for new summary. Thanks for watching.